Part 1. The Smile That Wasn't Mine. They say betrayal never comes from your enemies. I never understood that saying until it wore my sister's perfume. I'm 30 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the steady one. The older sister, the fixer. The person everyone leans on when they can't hold their lives together. Sarah was always different. Beautiful, impulsive, charming in a way that made people forgive her before she even did anything wrong. She didn't have to try, she just existed, and somehow the world shifted to make space for her shine. I never envied that glow. I admired it, protected it, defended it, even when I shouldn't have. And now I wish I hadn't. It started with a laugh. That kind of high-pitched, breathless laugh Sarah only saved for someone she was trying to impress. Except this time, she wasn't using it on some guy at a bar or a coworker she wanted to charm. She was using it on Tom, my boyfriend, the man I loved, the man I'd been building something real with. At first I told myself it was nothing, just Sarah being Sarah. She was excited, planning her wedding, glowing with the buzz of love and champagne tastings and bridal parties. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe my insecurities were just creeping in where they didn't belong. But it didn't stop at the laugh. It was the way her hand lingered a beat too long on his arm during conversations. The way her gaze followed him across the room when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she'd find reasons, silly, contrived reasons, to ask for his help. Like when we were at our parents' for dinner and she needed him, specifically him, to help her carry a box of candles upstairs. Or how she texted him privately to ask what kind of tie color he thought Mark, her fiancé, should wear. Why not me? I was her maid of honor. I didn't want to be the jealous girlfriend. I didn't want to see shadows in my sister's light. But it wasn't just shadows anymore, it was a pattern. A slow erosion of boundaries. A quiet, creeping invasion. One night, after another family dinner filled with too many glances and too many giggles that weren't mine, I sat down with Tom. My voice was calm, controlled. I didn't want to accuse, I just wanted clarity. Did you notice anything strange about Sarah tonight? He blinked. What do you mean? I swallowed hard. The way she talks to you, touches you, laughs at everything you say, it's constant. Tom looked at me like I was made of glass, like one wrong word might shatter me. You're reading too much into it, he said gently. She's just excited. You know how Sarah is, dramatic, flirty, but it's harmless. Harmless. That word felt like a slap. Harmless was a car ride with your sister. Harmless was inside jokes and bad karaoke nights. Harmless wasn't secret glances. Harmless wasn't the way my stomach twisted every time I caught her watching him when she thought no one would notice. But still, I nodded. I told myself to trust. I told myself to be rational. For a while I stayed quiet. But inside something was growing. Something hot and sour and relentless. Rage doesn't come all at once, it seeps in. It starts with tiny moments, the ones you dismiss too quickly. Like how she chose Tom to help her pick songs for the wedding playlist. Over Mark. Like how she always managed to sit next to him during group events, her shoulder brushing his more often than coincidence could excuse. Or how she laughed at his worst jokes as if they were comedy gold. It wasn't just me who saw it. My cousin Emma raised an eyebrow once at a party when Sarah reached over Tom to grab something and stayed pressed just a little too long. Emma didn't say anything. She just looked at me. A quiet, knowing glance. And that silence felt like validation. But I still said nothing. I wanted to believe Tom. I wanted to believe Sarah. Then came the barbecue. It was at our parents' backyard. Warm sun, burgers sizzling on the grill. Sarah in a white sundress that danced in the breeze like something out of a movie. I stepped inside to grab lemonade. I was gone for maybe 5 minutes. When I came back out, I saw them, Sarah and Tom standing close. Too close. Their heads tilted toward each other, his lips moving low, hers curled in a smile I hadn't seen her use on Mark in months. She giggled, and I swear it sounded like a confession. The moment they noticed me, they snapped apart, like children caught stealing candy. Sarah walked away. Tom acted like nothing had happened, but something had. That night, I didn't stay calm. I couldn't. I asked Tom what that moment in the yard was about. He shrugged, said they were talking about the song list again. The song list? I repeated. He nodded. She wanted to know if 1,000 years was overdone for a wedding. And you needed to stand that close to discuss it? He sighed. You're blowing this out of proportion. I'm trying to be nice. She's your sister. I stared at him. She's my sister, I said, my voice low and trembling. And that's exactly why this hurts. He didn't get it. He didn't get. Or maybe he didn't want to. To him, boundaries didn't need enforcing because, in his mind, no line had been crossed. But I was the one bleeding. We argued until the words ran out. He said I was insecure. I said he was blind. We both went to bed on opposite sides of a very cold, very empty bed. The next morning, I called Sarah. I needed to hear her say it wasn't what it looked like. To be continued in part 2, the cafe confession, where emotional confrontation takes center stage and the fragile line between loyalty and betrayal begins to snap. Part 2, the cafe confession. I chose a cafe Sarah loved. Small, sunny, a place where we used to meet on lazy Saturday mornings to talk about everything and nothing. I thought maybe if we sat there, surrounded by familiarity, the conversation would be easier. I thought maybe she'd hear me. She arrived on time, smiling brightly, waving at me like nothing was wrong. Like we weren't about to peel back the skin of our relationship and see what rot lay underneath. I gave her a tight smile as she sat down. My heart was thudding so loud I was afraid she could hear it. I already ordered you the lavender latte, I said quietly. She beamed. You know me so well. I didn't respond. I was too focused on what I was about to say. She launched into wedding talk right away. Flowers, seating charts, dress fittings, her bachelorette weekend. Her voice was sugary, dancing between topics, her excitement infectious if I didn't already feel so sick inside. After 5 minutes of nodding and pretending, I finally said her name. Sarah. She stopped mid-sentence, her smile faltered. We need to talk about something serious. A pause, her eyes searched my face. Okay. I took a breath. My fingers tightened around the cup. I need you to stop the way you've been acting around Tom. Her brows knit together. What? The flirting, the touching, the looks, the private messages, the closeness. I see it, feel it, and it's making me incredibly uncomfortable. Her expression changed slowly. Confusion first, then something sharper. Denial. I don't know what you're talking about, she said flatly. I pressed on, trying to keep my voice from cracking. You may not realize it, but the way you behave around him, it's not appropriate, and it's hurting me. She leaned back in her chair and gave a dry laugh. You've got to be kidding. You think I'm into Tom? Sarah, come on. No, you're accusing me of something disgusting. I'm asking you to respect my relationship. Her cheeks flushed red. Because I laughed at his jokes? Because I sat next to him? It's more than that. You touch him all the time. You always want him involved in your wedding plans. You look at him like, oh my God, she cut me off. You're actually serious. I nodded slowly. She shook her head in disbelief. You're being paranoid. I'm being honest. No, you're being insecure and jealous. Do you hear yourself? You sound crazy. That stung, but I didn't back down. This isn't about jealousy, it's about boundaries. You've crossed them, whether you meant to or not. Her eyes narrowed. You don't trust me. Right now? No, I don't. Silence. Then she stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly. Her voice rose, trembling with anger. If you can't even trust your own sister, then maybe you're the problem. And just like that, she was gone. She walked out of that cafe like I was a stranger who had insulted her in line, not her sister who just begged for respect. I sat there for a while staring at her untouched latte, feeling like I had just destroyed something sacred. When I got home, Tom saw my face and didn't even ask what happened. He already knew. She's upset, he said. You probably shouldn't have confronted her like that. So what? I'm supposed to ignore it? Let her get away with it? No, but there's a way to handle things. You blindsided her. I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry, but all I said was, "Are you taking her side?" He looked genuinely hurt. No, but I know Sarah. She's dramatic. She doesn't know how to behave sometimes, but that doesn't mean she wants me. My throat tightened. Then why not set boundaries? Because I didn't think I needed to. I thought you trusted me. I stared at him, and for the first time I wondered, did I? Or had I been gaslighting myself for weeks just to keep the peace? The days that followed were quiet, tense. Sarah stopped speaking to me. My phone calls went unanswered. My parents began asking questions. Why was Sarah so upset? Why had I skipped her last dress fitting? I told them the truth, or at least the version I could manage without breaking into tears. They didn't believe me. You're exaggerating, my mom said. Sarah would never do that. But I saw it. She's your sister, Dad added. You need to fix this before the wedding. Fix it. As if it was just a broken lamp or a misunderstanding. But I had already tried, and Sarah had walked out on me like I was nothing. I was supposed to be her maid of honor. Now I wasn't even sure if I was still invited. Tom still thought I overreacted. He wanted us to go to the wedding together, pretend everything was okay, smile for the pictures, play happy family. I didn't have the energy to explain that pretending might kill me. Then one night, I had a dream. I was at the wedding. Everyone stared at me, whispered, pointed. My dress didn't fit right. My heels sank into the floor. Sarah walked past me in white, radiant and smug. Tom beside her, and I was invisible. I woke up gasping, sweat-soaked, empty. To be continued in Part 3, The Garden Kiss, where the truth finally reveals itself in the most unbearable way. Part 3, The Garden Kiss. 1 week before the wedding, I drove to my parents' house. Not because I wanted to, because I needed to. I couldn't stand the silence anymore. The unanswered texts, the strained family group chat where everyone pretended nothing was wrong. I wanted to believe there was still a thread left uncut between me and Sarah. That maybe if I showed up, things could start to mend. Maybe she'd come to her senses. Maybe Tom would finally admit the boundary had been crossed. Maybe someone, anyone, would say, I see it too, you're not crazy. But that's not what happened. I pulled into the driveway late in the afternoon. The sun hung low, throwing long golden streaks across the yard. My parents' garden was in full bloom, roses exploding along the trellis, hydrangeas heavy with color. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, there was a strange stillness in the air, a silence that felt too perfect. As I approached the front steps, I heard something. Muffled voices, laughter, then a sharp hush. I paused, stepping lightly around the porch. The sound came from the side of the house, near the garden gate. Something pulled me forward, slow and cautious, as if my body already knew what my mind refused to consider. And then I saw them. Sarah. Hidden behind a thick camellia bush, wrapped in each other like they didn't need to breathe. Her arms were looped around his neck. His hands, God, his hands, were under her shirt. Her lips on his. His body pressed tightly to hers. They weren't talking, they weren't laughing, they were devouring each other. Like they'd done it before, like they couldn't wait anymore. I froze, not from shock, but from the exact opposite. I had always known. Somewhere deep down I had always known. And now I was staring at it. Proof. It felt like something in me collapsed. Something final and internal snapped. I don't remember screaming, I don't remember moving, but suddenly the words were pouring out of me like venom. What the hell is this? They both jolted. Tom stumbled backward like he'd been hit. Sarah gasped, eyes wide, hand flying to her chest like that could cover what she had just done. I stood there trembling. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. No. You don't get to act surprised." Tom's mouth opened, a pathetic stammer. It's not what it looks like." "Really?" I laughed, bitter and breathless, because it looks exactly like what I've been accused of imagining for weeks. Sarah's face crumpled. "I'm so sorry," she cried. It happened." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't you dare. You don't get to sorry your way out of this." I looked at Tom. He couldn't even meet my eyes. "You gaslit me," I whispered. "You made me question my instincts. You made me feel insane." Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I didn't care anymore. I turned to leave. Tom tried to grab my arm. "Please, let me explain." I pulled away like his touch burned me. "Don't touch me." Sarah called after me. "Please, wait. It wasn't supposed to happen." "You mean I wasn't supposed to see it?" Neither of them answered, and that was my answer. I don't remember driving home. I just remember packing. One small bag, toothbrush, charger, 2 changes of clothes. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay. Not in that house. Not in that life. Not with the weight of betrayal sitting in every corner. I texted Tom exactly 4 words. "We're done. Don't call." Then I turned off my phone. Now I'm in a hotel room, alone. The wedding is in 5 days. Sarah's wedding. The one where I was supposed to stand beside her, fix her veil, hold her bouquet, toast her love story. Instead, I'm sitting on a bed that isn't mine, wondering how the people I trusted most could turn me into collateral damage. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just hollow. The kind of hollow you feel in your bones. I thought I'd imagined it all. That I was dramatic. That I was insecure, but I was right. And the truth didn't feel like justice. It felt like loss. To be continued in Part 4, The Undoing. Where silence becomes vengeance and truth starts to burn through the lies. Part 4, The Undoing. The first thing I did after I shut off my phone was cry. Not the kind of dramatic sobbing you see in movies. No, this was quieter, emptier. It came in waves, silent and slow, like my body was grieving something it hadn't even fully acknowledged yet. I cried for the version of myself that had begged to be believed. I cried for every moment I doubted my instincts, let someone tell me what I felt wasn't real. And I cried for the sister I thought I had. But after the crying came clarity. Something strange happens when you lose everything you thought was solid. You realize you're still standing. Shaken, yes, broken maybe, but still breathing, still here. For the first time in weeks, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to perform politeness. I didn't have to play the part of the supportive sister, the reasonable girlfriend, the peacemaker. I could just be angry. I let myself feel it all. The rage, the betrayal, the humiliation. Not to drown in it, but to let it move through me like a storm that needed to pass. And then I called Mark, Sarah's fiancé. I hadn't planned to. I'd spent hours pacing the hotel room, debating with myself. Was it my place? Would I be blowing up someone else's life too? But in the end, the choice became simple. He deserved the truth. He was just as much a casualty of their lies as I was. When he answered, his voice was calm, even friendly. "Hey," he said, "Sarah told me you were dealing with something. Are you okay?" She really had told him I was the unstable one. "I need to talk to you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sure, what's going on?" So I told him. Everything. From the first weird laugh to the texts, the touches, the emotional whiplash, and finally, the garden. I described the scene in detail, not to be cruel, but because someone needed to finally say what happened out loud, without fear, without censorship. Mark listened in complete silence. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was a long pause. Then he said softly, "I believe you." Just like that. 3 words, and suddenly I felt the air return to my lungs. "Thank you," I whispered. "I don't know what I'm going to do yet," he said, "but thank you for telling me." The next few days were a blur. I stayed away from my phone, from my family, from the noise, but on the morning of the wedding, something shifted. I woke up with a strange sense of stillness, like something had settled in me. I wasn't going. I wouldn't be part of that lie. Instead, I made myself a cup of coffee, wrapped myself in a hotel blanket, and watched the sun rise through the curtains. Let her have her day. If she could still look in the mirror and wear white and stand beside someone she'd betrayed, that was her burden to carry. Not mine. I didn't expect to hear anything. I assumed the wedding would go on, picture perfect, with forced smiles and secrets buried under layers of makeup and silk. But that afternoon my phone rang. It was Emma, our cousin, the only one who had ever looked at me with concern during those awful weeks. I picked up. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You're not going to believe what just happened." She told me everything. How the ceremony started late, how Sarah looked like a dream, her dress shimmering like a fairy tale. How Mark stood at the altar, calm, composed, unreadable. And then, just as the vows were about to begin, Mark stepped forward. He turned to the guests and said he had something to say. The entire room fell silent. He told them he couldn't marry someone who would betray her own sister. That trust and loyalty were sacred to him, and that he couldn't begin a new life built on deception. Sarah went pale. People gasped. My parents looked like they'd been struck by lightning. Then he turned to them and said, "Now you know why she's been silent." And he walked out. No yelling, no chaos, just the truth, laid bare. I didn't know what to say. Emma's voice trembled. "Your parents are in shock. Sarah's a wreck. I think she thought he'd forgive her." "Did he say my name?" I asked. "No, but everyone knew." I sat there for a long time after the call ended. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. What I felt was peace. Like the truth had finally done its job. It hadn't healed anything yet, but it had stopped the bleeding. To be continued in Part 5, The Quiet Room, where the pain turns inward, but the soul begins to rebuild. Part 5, The Quiet Room. The day after the wedding, that wasn't, I returned to my apartment for the first time in almost a week. It felt like stepping into a stranger's home. Everything was exactly as I had left it. The same dishes in the sink, the same pair of shoes by the door, the same scent of lavender still lingering faintly in the sheets. But I wasn't the same. Something in me had cracked open, and not in a way that needed fixing. No, this was the kind of breaking that lets light in. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I just sat on the edge of my bed, placed both feet on the ground, and breathed. For the first time in what felt like months, I felt safe. Not because the pain was gone, it wasn't, but because I finally stopped trying to convince people that it was real. I had stopped fighting to be believed. And in that quiet, I started to believe myself again. Over the next few days, I did small things, gentle things. I watered my plants. I made myself real meals, nothing fancy, just food I liked. I turned off notifications. I didn't reach out to Sarah. I didn't reach out to Tom, and I didn't expect them to reach out to me. Instead, I turned inward. I opened an old journal I hadn't touched in years. The first page still held a list I'd written in college, full of dreams. Open a little bookshop, travel to Iceland, learn Italian, Fall in love. Truly this time. I laughed when I read that last one. Not because it was silly, but because it was still mine. No one could take that from me. One night, a week later, my mom called. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Her voice was softer than I expected. "I just wanted to hear your voice," she said. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. She sighed. "Things are broken, I know. But I see it now. I'm sorry it took so long." And for once, I didn't feel the need to explain, or justify, or relive it all. "I'm okay, Mom," I said. "I will be." And that was enough. It's strange the way betrayal can rearrange everything you thought you knew. But it also reveals. It strips away the roles you've played out of duty, the masks you've worn to be the good daughter, the loyal sister, the understanding partner. And underneath it all, if you're lucky, you find someone real. Not perfect, not untouched, but honest, whole. Still willing to love, but no longer willing to beg for it. I've started therapy. I've started going on morning walks again. I've started looking at myself in the mirror without immediately picking myself apart. Some days are still hard. Some nights, I still wonder if I could have done something different. But most days, I feel light again. Not because the weight disappeared, but because I stopped carrying everyone else's. This story won't end with revenge, or reunion, or some grand, dramatic reckoning. This story ends with me, sitting in the quiet, learning to listen to the small voice inside, the one I silenced for so long in the name of keeping the peace. That voice now says, "You did the right thing. You trusted yourself. You came home. To you." And honestly, that's enough. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you've ever doubted yourself, ever been told your instincts were wrong, please know, you're not alone. Your truth matters. You matter.